Since AI cannot produce pessimistic videos, the content must include a solution.
We all want to feel safe, right? Of course we do. But how do we actually build a safer society? And more importantly, what are the hidden costs of the paths we choose to get there? Today, we're going to dig into this massive question, and some of the data might really surprise you.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at what actually stops crime in its tracks. Then, we'll see how that idea logically leads to mass surveillance, and we'll unpack the real price of that kind of safety. After that, we'll explore a totally different path, education. And finally, we'll land on the big choice we all have to make about our future.
All right, first things first. What actually stops someone from committing a crime? You might think you know the answer, but the research tells a story that really changes the entire conversation.
For a long time, there have basically been two big ideas duking it out. On one side, you have punishment severity. This is the idea that if we just make punishments harsher, longer sentences, stricter penalties, people will be too scared to break the law. But on the other side, there's punishment certainty. This theory says what really matters isn't how harsh the punishment is, but how likely you are to get caught in the first place. So, which one wins out?
Well, the evidence is pretty overwhelming. This study, and many others like it, found that criminal activity is incredibly sensitive to the certainty of being caught. The severity of the punishment, turns out it barely moves the needle. The real takeaway is this. It's not the fear of a long sentence that stops people. It's the fear of getting caught, period.
Okay, so if we know that the certainty of getting caught is the key, where does that knowledge lead us? Well, it points to a very specific, tech-driven solution that can start to feel almost inevitable.
The logic is almost dangerously simple, right? Step 1. Our goal is to reduce crime. Step 2. We know the best way to do that is to make people feel like they will get caught. So, step 3. What's the most powerful tool we have today for that? You got it, mass surveillance. We're talking cameras on every corner, facial recognition, the whole shebang.
And this is exactly why the argument for surveillance is so persuasive. It's presented as this completely rational, data-driven policy. It's a direct answer to the evidence. If you want to raise what researchers call the risk of apprehension, then a giant network of cameras and sensors seems like the most efficient way to do it. But this is where things get really complicated.
This brings us right to the heart of the dilemma. What is the real price tag on this technologically enforced safety? Because it turns out, the cost might be the very democratic values we think we're trying to protect.
You see, when a society leans heavily on mass surveillance, it starts paying a very steep democratic price. It's not just about privacy, though that's a huge part of it. It creates what's called a chilling effect. People start to self-censor. They become afraid to speak their minds, to organize, to protest. And maybe the most dangerous part? It hands an immense amount of power to the state, which can be abused. It just eats away at the fundamental trust between a government and its people.
So we're forced to ask this really tough question. Is this just a simple trade-off? To be safer, do we have to be less free? It can feel like we're trapped between a rock and a hard place. But what if it's a false choice?
Let's explore a completely different route. A path that tries to build a safe society not through control from the outside, but through empowerment from the inside. A path that actually works with democracy, not against it.
Just take a look at this data from all over the world. The pattern is pretty hard to miss. Countries with very high levels of education, like Japan and Germany, have incredibly low murder rates. As the education level goes down, in places like Honduras or Haiti, the violent crime rate tends to shoot way up. Now sure, the US is a bit of an outlier, which tells us other factors are at play, but that overall global trend is undeniable.
We can actually put a number on this. The correlation is estimated to be around -0.6. Now, for anyone who isn't a stats geek, that basically means there's a really strong connection. It's like a seesaw. When national education levels go up, murder rates reliably go down. To put it plainly, more education strongly correlates with less violent crime.
So when you put all this together, we're left with two very different blueprints for the future. It's a choice between two totally different philosophies for how to create a good society.
And here's the choice, laid out plain and simple. The surveillance path uses control as its main tool. And yes, it lowers crime, but the side effect is that it weakens democracy. The education path, on the other hand, uses empowerment. And guess what? It also lowers crime, but its side effect is the exact opposite. It actually strengthens democracy. It's a win-win. You get a society that's not only safer, but also freer and stronger.
So that's the real question we're left with. As we think about building a safer world, what kind of foundation are we going to build it on?
Will it be a foundation of control or one of empowerment? The choice we make is going to define absolutely everything about the society we live in. Thanks for tuning in.